Next, we're going to open it up to the entertainment panel question and answer. So please, if you've got questions related to that, drop them into the Q&A. I'm going to show us some show trailers. We've got Babes in the Woods, which is co-written by me and Barbara Betus, and co-stars Sion, you can come back on. It's got Romancing in Paris with Lily, and Storytime by me, and then I promise that's the last of my podcasts. So here is Babes in the Woods.
When former college roommates Joanne and Britt join up for a hike in the Colorado Rockies on Joanne's 25th birthday, they're prepared for a light, fun, 4-hour walk culminating in delicious birthday barbecue.
You ready? Britt, are you putting on lipstick?
So what?
So we're about to go on a 4-hour hike up the Rockies.
So? Mother Nature will appreciate the effort. But when they decide to follow a mysterious arrow in the woods, things take a turn for the bizarre. Hey, wait, this rock has an arrow painted on it. Was that yours?
I don't remember an arrow.
Should we follow it? Maybe it's a sign.
We don't want to get lost, though. There's only this one trail.
Well, let's just take a little peek. What could possibly go wrong? With not much more than lipstick, dental floss, and their own senses of humor to get them through, will they survive against Mother Nature, unexplained occurrences, and an abandoned town that may not be abandoned after all? Babes in the Woods, an original comedic mystery series. Wednesdays on Paris Underground Radio.
All right, and then Romancing in Paris.
Is Paris the most romantic city in the world? It is, but there's much more to its romantic allure than the Eiffel Tower. The Romancing in Paris podcast aims to reveal the true romantic essence of the city. Secret gardens, hidden historic sites, and terribly seductive bars. Join romantic expert and writer Lily Heise as we discover the city's best romantic spots, ideal for both curious couples and lovers of Paris alike. Ready to experience the real romantic Paris? Tune into the Romancing in Paris podcast every Wednesday on Paris Underground Radio. Visit parisundergroundradio.com/Romancing in Paris to listen and subscribe.
And lastly, Storytime.
If I ask you what it's like to be a Parisian writer, what do you imagine? Drinking noisette after noisette in a noisy cafe? Jotting down lines in your bedside journal while your lover fetches you fresh croissants? Stumbling down the streets overflowing with prose and red wine like Hemingway? Well, now's your chance to find out. My name is Jennifer Geraghty, and I'm host of the Storytime in Paris podcast. In each episode, I chat with a writer with a French connection. The twist? The questions come from you, the writer's biggest fans and followers. Then our beloved writers will read us an excerpt from their books. So cozy up with a noisette, a croissant, or whatever's your pleasure, and settle in for Storytime in Paris on Paris Underground Radio.
All right, Gail, take it away.
Thank you. Well, panel number 2, entertainment. So I have a question for our panelists. It's from Christine Alexander. Her question: what advice do you have for single women moving to Paris who would like to date?
Well, thank you, Christine, and hello. Christine follows my Facebook page, so great to see Christine's question here. She could follow some of yours as well. Maybe some of the others know Christine too. I have a good piece of advice, and that is to go to meetup groups. And so there's a group for every single interest you could imagine, as well as more general expat meetup groups where you will meet friends French people too. French people who maybe lived or worked abroad and are interested in keeping those international kind of their international vibe and lifestyle going. And so it could be anything from hiking to wine tasting to film. So there are tons of groups either on meetup.com or expat groups. Even if you're here temporarily, you can kind of join those. And so I think those are a great way to meet people. You'll meet friends and potentially romantic interests too.
Good suggestion. Any other single ladies in the house have some suggestions?
If we had suggestions, we wouldn't be single. I'm no, great idea. That's what I did when I first moved here. I joined a bunch of meetups. I also think that just getting out, go sit in a cafe. Again, people will talk to you. People will approach you. It's a culture of people sort of finding each other outside. I just saw the question from Jody about how you learn about these groups. If you go to meetup.com, and I think you search by city, you can find them. So meetup.com.
I also think sitting in a cafe, people, I meet people all the time. Of course, I talk to everybody, so I'm probably a bad example, but truly just sitting, walking around, you always meet people. Anyway, I'm not the one answering the questions. Now, here's another question. In your opinion, one of you, what's the most romantic district in Paris?
That's a hard one. I personally really like the Canal Saint-Martin area. I think that's really beautiful, kind of romantic, and kind of walk around, lots of things to see. Also, I know what Lily's going to say. Montmartre is very romantic.
No, that's not what I was going to say, but it is. So.
What were you going to say?
I was going to say the Marais. And the reason why I often choose the Marais, or if we can cheat, well, no, it's the 3rd and the 4th district, is that in the Marais, it's quiet, there isn't as much traffic, there's history, there's food, there's kind of delicious treats, there's everything that we love about Paris in one place. But because there isn't a lot of traffic, it's nice to be able to walk like kind of hand in hand. But there are also lots of secret spots and secret gardens and interesting historic sites, which we will visit in episode 3 of Romancing in Paris.
We also got a question from Calista Taslin, which I'm not sure if you've seen, Gail, but she wants to know what our favorite movie about Paris, not necessarily set in Paris, is. I have an answer, but I don't know if anyone else has one too.
That's a good question.
Well, then I'll answer. So my favorite movies that, I don't know, I mean, for me, about Paris means that it gives you the sense of what it's like to be here, the feeling of it. I'm a really big fan of the Richard Linklater films, the Before Sunrise, Before Sunset, and Before Midnight. I think a lot of it is just them walking around and talking, drinking coffee, drinking wine, debating, arguing, making love. I feel like that's all very Paris-y. So those would be my choice.
Well, I guess that's a good one. And I think it's a hard question to answer as well, too. Well, we still have some more time. Here's an interesting question. What was it like to co-write an audio drama? And was it your first time doing it, Jennifer?
It was. I don't know, Barbara, if you want to answer that question.
Yes.
It was so much fun because I was writing it with my daughter, Jennifer. And we conceived the idea for the drama on a 4-day trip from Florida to Colorado, where we spent the summer in the Rocky Mountains. And so that became the setting for our little radio drama / mystery / comedy. And it was really fun. Jennifer did most of the actual writing. So I was able to think up ideas and tell them to her, and she would write them down. And then my major role was coming up with local color and things about the wilderness and wild animals. And she translated everything into 20-something speak so that it didn't sound like an old lady was writing it.
I'm not sure that I would have put it quite that way, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. I think that my mom, Barbara, came up with a lot of the major plot points and did a lot of thinking about how we would get from point A to point B in the plot. And I did a lot of the detail work, specifically the dialogue. Yeah, dropping in a lot of pop culture references because these are supposed to be like, 20-something girls. So yeah, I think our skills complemented each other well. My mom is a novelist and I'm a screenwriter, so they're kind of different worlds anyway. And we kind of just came together in this audio drama.
Oh, that's very cool. What's everyone's favorite book that's set in Paris?
What about you, Sion? Do you have a favorite book set in Paris?
Well, I do have a favorite. Oh, sorry. Is that better?
No.
Does somebody else have a favorite book set in Paris?
I do. I have a favorite book set in Paris. It's a book that I read. It's not a recent book, but it's a book that I read recently. And again, I think it gives you a really good sense of what it's like to live here. It's also a pretty, I don't know, it's a very emotional story, kind of a heart-wrenching story, but very, very Parisian in its feeling. And it's Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. Is that what you were going to say, Sion?
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Stole your answer.
Yeah, mine don't. I don't think it's the book that people expect when you think about Paris, but I mean, he's my literary hero. It's so beautiful and heartbreaking. So if you just want to read like literary art,
yeah,
that's what I'd recommend.
Well, Emily agrees with you guys too, because she just put something in the chat about it being a favorite of hers as well. Lily, do you have any favorite books that are set in Paris?
Well, it's always hard to say favorite, and so I think that it's instead of it's better to think among the favorites. But I'm a bit of a history geek, and so I tend to like not only just historical fiction, but actually just nonfiction history books. So you might be a little bored. I'll be reading about Catherine de Medici or Louis XIV or something like that. But there were so many, that top shelf of my bookshelf, it has just Paris books. They're all over the place. And so I find that what's really makes a great successful Paris book is a book that explores something else in Paris, and it isn't really for tour. It doesn't feel like a touristy read or just an expat read, let's say. And I agree that Giovanni's Room does evoke that, because it's someone who's just in Paris and it's just having this really intense experience here. And so I think that just for that is just an amazing book that kind of brings you here, and it doesn't take, it's not really about Paris, it's about this tragic love story that takes place in Paris, but you can really kind of get a feel for what it was like to be in Paris at that time. So.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone, panelists, for being here. If you're interested in what our hosts from this panel have to offer, you can find, again, the Business in France Mastermind. You can get your banner put on the Paris Underground Radio website. You can get a guest spot on the podcast of your choosing, all offered by me. And you can get a copy of your new favorite Paris book, Lily's book, There's Only One Paris, Tales from Our Time, as well as an introduction to the history of Paris, the ultimate guide to romantic Paris, and 5 custom designed Paris date ideas, all from Lily.